Hello, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team, and what I want to talk about today is the idea of engineering a win. And now, first of all, I want to say this is going to be number 97, and the reason for that is because it turns out that the last topic, I already did, so that's why this is another 97 to make up for it. Anyway, engineering a win, and this is actually for the Skaven, and the wonderful thing that they can actually be doing that I can't believe I don't see more of. Now, obviously, a usual tactic that you see the Skaven doing in the battlefield is they have their wonderful 2-point slaves that they throw out there. Guys can go and charge them, and not only can you bog these guys down forever, but then you can shoot and do magic into combat. So while this unit is stuck there, you're just blasting and blasting, and you can just imagine that between the dreaded 13th, that while they're trapped, you're just bogging them and turn them all into rats. Or if you get them in place, you can be shooting the warp flame thrower thing and be killing tons of them. I mean, you can kill hordes so quickly with that once they're pinned down. And it's just devastating. The one thing that you always have to kind of balance, though, as a Skaven player, is just the amount of damage that's done to you. Because slaves, I mean, there's a reason why they're 2 points. They're really crappy, and they die like crazy. The nice thing is that, I mean, once you have your BSB and your Gracier there, you're going to be having a very high leadership, and I mean, they're not going to break, but I mean, they're not there to win. They're going to die in droves, and you're really not caring how fast they die because they're going to be just steadfast anyway. The one bad thing about them dying is that if they die too quickly, all of a sudden they break through that and they can get to the other things. I mean, that one weapons team, I think, is 75 points. So, I mean, these things can add up really quick. And of course, as well, if you're not prepared for it and the slaves explode, they can be catching a lot of different things unprepared. So you have to be really careful with that. And you got to imagine that they're charging in on their turn, killing a bunch of slaves, and then on your turn, you're going to be able to shoot. But then there's going to be another combat, and it could be that that's now the point that they can take steadfast away, and they're going to be able to charge something else and on their turn, and that's not what you want. And when you're looking at what you can do to stop this, well, one thing you can do is just be adding tons more slaves, right? Slaves are cheap, you can add tons of them. One of the things that you start getting to as a problem is that first of all, you have the amount of space you have. I mean, you can just double the size of your slaves, but you only have so much room to deal with. And of course, the farther back those slaves go, the less room in the back you have to work with all your real things. So you can really be bogging down your own deployment zone. The other part is that these things still do start to add up, because they're only 2 points, but that still means that you're paying 10 points for a rank. And I mean, if you're taking 7 ranks extra, all of a sudden you could be taking another weapons team. So you really have to be trying to find a way that you can get the best bang for your buck. Now, back to my whole title of this, engineering a win, for those of you that can probably see through this little pun of mine. It's just about the engineer. The Skaven engineer is only 15 points. Amazingly cheap. Usually engineers don't stay cheap because all of a sudden you upgrade them to be a level 1 wizard and you give them gear and all this stuff. But if you don't give them gear, they're just 15 points. And they're a fantastic throwaway unit. And so basically what you're going to be doing then is that when you have your regular slave blocks, you're just going to be throwing a cheap bare bones engineer in there. Now, an engineer being 15 points, that means it's about 7.5 slaves that you're giving up to do that. But I mean, the amount of slaves that can be dying in one combat, we can be talking upwards to the range of 15, right? Double that, 20. Depends how killy of a unit you're up against. And so what's going to be happening is that your unit of slaves is going to move up. When the enemy starts coming towards you, the engineer is just going to go and step right in front. And what's that going to allow you to do is that when the opponent charges, they're going to kill that engineer. And then when they overrun, well, then they can be going into the slaves, but now you have it on your turn, you can be blasting them, and you don't have to be worrying about that extra round of death to your slaves. The other thing you can also do is that if you space it out right, you can be moving that engineer really far out so that, say that the full 10 inches he can march, just depending how it's looking. And then all that means then is that when they charge that engineer, they have 2 options. Either they can stand further back and you can, just be shooting them more, or if they overrun, with 2d6 for the usual overrun, that's only going to be an average of 7. So that means that the overrun would even bring them to the slaves. So you can be saving multiple rounds of combat, multiple rounds of death from your slaves with this one 15-point model. And that's really as simple as it gets. If you're ever against something else that you need to just be bogging down, out go these engineers. You can even just, depending on what the type of mission is, right? If you're at something at a tournament and you need something to be holding back objectives on your side, go and be throwing back the engineers, right? Just a fantastic thing. Or another one, if you have some mysterious terrain that you want to find out what it is before you move a unit into it, send in the 15-point engineer. A fantastic thing to have, but I think the largest one is just that control with the slaves, where you can just be greatly reducing the amount of deaths you can have, and then obviously maximizing your round shooting and killing the enemy troops. So there you have it, engineering a Skaven win.